Welcome back to our discussion, Observability, the key to delivering highly resilient applications, sponsored by Splunk here on Federal News Network. My guest today is Mala Palutla. She's the Global Vice President for Observability at Splunk. I'm Tom Temin. Mala, good to have you here again with us today. And let's talk about industry, because often what industry adopts as best practices is ahead of what the government does, and the government looks to industry for the best technology deployment models sometimes. So talk about what you're seeing in industry with respect to adopting observability and the types of tools being used.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom. Like I stated earlier, observability is an evolving enterprise market category, and it's evolving within our customer base as well. And, quite recently, if you take a look at Gartner's Magic Quadrant, for the first time, observability was interchangeably used as logging, infrastructure monitoring, and APM. And Gartner just launched their MQ, their recent MQ. It was APM and observability. So this is a market and a term that's evolving. And it's also a crowded market, right? When you take a look at what we're trying to do is we are taking a look at that full stack of an application and ensuring every component of that stack, there's no degradation to potentially bring that application down or that business service down and cause downtime. What we are seeing, one of the trends that we are seeing, this is more on the commercial and enterprise customers at Splunk, is a consolidation of tools. There was an e-commerce customer that we were working with recently, and they had like 4 teams. All of them were part of the SRE organization with the goal to ensure that there is always uptime of their mission critical application. And they were using 4 solutions: Grafana, Splunk Logs, New Relic, and CloudWatch, just to understand what's happening across the environment, let alone trying to troubleshoot it, right? So this means tons and tons and thousands of dashboards for each of those tools with no meaningful correlation between those data sets. So there was a lot of time lost during reconciling these dashboards and data and slowing down. Ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to prevent an outage, and we're trying to condense that mean time to resolve when an issue happens. So Splunk provides that unified single way to understand that application health, right? End-to-end visibility of that workflow, be it wherever the data sits. It could be in Grafana, it could be in New Relic, it could be in CloudWatch. So we're seeing a trend with our customers quite recently, I think, in the past couple of quarters, on consolidating the various niche tools to one vendor that can provide that unified view of the application end to end.
Right. That's really an important point, because people can only do so much with the 2 eyes and the number of people you have and the time you have to do it. Between looking at every log separately, which is probably impossible, and to total abstraction to one single view of what's going on with an off or on button or a green or red light, what is the right level of abstraction? What should you expect from that single pane of glass? And then does that let you drill down from there if you need to however fine-grained you want to get?
I think so. Ultimately, it's a workflow. There is an event and there's an outcome. And the solutions that can provide that end-to-end visibility of that workflow on where the issue is and isolate it quickly are the solutions that our customers are asking for. And it's also a new practice. Observability has, a lot of customers are adopting it as a core competency. It's something that, as the digital transformation accelerates, so are our customers' observability competency that we have come across. We recently did the Splunk State of Observability report for 2023. And what we saw was industries that adopted observability competencies and practices. Actually, it resulted in some tangible business results. 73% of those leaders accelerated the deployment times of new applications and solutions when they adopted a modern observability practice. Also, 75% of those leaders also accelerated the mean time to detect, and 60% accelerated the time to build new applications and deploy them faster. So there is this correlation of having competency in observability and how it drives the business agility, specifically in a macro dynamic environment that we are in.
Yes, you get to an important point, and that is modernization. And every agency is pursuing that in one form or another. because they just want to lower costs. They want better cloud adoption. They want to optimize their applications or optimize the cloud instances that they have, not just lift and shift and all of the rest of it. So when developing applications, therefore, is it fair to say that you should develop your new systems with observability in mind, or can you simply apply these tools from Splunk and the observability occurs from what you've already developed?
I think it's a mindset, right? Observability as a competency. Um, as you adopt it, you do see correlation as you digitize your organization, but it's also a competency that's evolving as well, right? So Splunk provides that ability. We are thought leaders in OTel. We are thought leaders in observability. So when we work with our customers, we want to provide that advisory partnership and consultative approach on how to build that practice and how to govern your cloud native applications, if you will. So I think it is, yes, there is technology that's needed for observability, but there's also a practice and a competency that's equally needed to make sure these two come together to provide that nirvana of not having any outage or downtime or a breach of your critical applications. Just another example that I want to give you, Tom. This is a customer in South America. It's called Rappi. It's an on-demand delivery company, and the statistics are amazing when we work with this company. They had about 2.2 million orders per week of delivery. And the application performance and SLIs are so critical, not just for their customer experience, right, but for the profitability of the company. If that app goes down, so does the profitability of that company. So they use Splunk to bring observability to that application, right? Be it sudden spike in errors. They're like, okay, there is an error in this particular API for this online delivery application. They can understand which API caused that error or crash, release a hot fix while knowing and working on that API in the back end, all while continuously releasing new functionality to that application. So that is the level of sophistication that we're seeing in some of the companies that have modernized and are using cloud native technologies.
Yeah, that really sounds like fixing the airplane while it's underway.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and so that is an example of what we call a cloud native company. But there are other examples, like we were working with Ikea, and IKEA, on how IKEA can prevent downtime and outages of IKEA. I mean, all of us love IKEA. I love IKEA. And the complexity that they have about 25,000, I want to say, servers. They process insane amount of transactions, like 300 million transactions per day and 13 to 14 checkouts per second. And they have about 4 billion annual visits and operate 5 global centers. So they use Splunk logs, Splunk metrics, and ITSI, which is our end-to-end visibility solution for IT ops, to reduce that false positives, right? Like you said earlier, from alert sources to drive efficiency and effectiveness of the IT ops teams.
Yeah, that's a lot of drawers and chairs, I guess, to push out the door. But you mentioned competencies a moment ago, and to get people to obtain new competencies in your organization to be able to handle this type of observability, you kind of need to change the culture and to get them to buy into new work processes. So maybe comment on the process change required to adopt observability, and then what specific competencies your people might need and how long it takes to get them.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Tom. I think it's an evolution of, there are a couple of trends going on in the industry, right? Observability, like I said, is an evolving term. And also we're seeing some convergence, right? Monitoring traditionally was in the IT ops, it was an IT ops imperative. And what we are seeing with observability is the role of IT ops is critical, but also the role of what we're calling the DevOps teams or the SRE teams. So we are seeing a convergence there around, applications that run the business, traditionally falls in the IT ops domain, and applications that are changing the business, right? New applications in new microservices environment. And that's falling under the DevOps, SRE world, if you will. So it's a convergence that's very exciting for us here at Splunk. And depending on where that domain lies, we are able to provide, based on our expertise, on what type of competency, right? The competency is around skills. It's around thought leadership on how to approach this, right? Based on what we've seen with some of our large customers. It's also sharing with them where we see the roadmap going for observability over, a 3-year horizon, if you will. So while there's an evolution of observability, there's also a convergence of different teams within an enterprise that's also fascinating for us. So it's definitely a partnership on building the right competency with our customer. It's also something we are learning at Splunk, as well as, we're taking that knowledge back to our customers.
And when you mention that team, it's in everybody's best interest to optimize applications, because even the best DevOps operations, you're going to deploy things that need to be optimized over time. So can this observability also extend to understanding inter-application dependencies, data flows, and so forth, so that you can, say, minimize cloud costs for data egress and otherwise optimize applications on, say, on the performance end, using observability as kind of your starting point?
Absolutely. Let me give you an example recently of a customer. I mean, data is expensive, right? And with our data approach to observability and security, what we've noticed is when working with our customers, not all applications and business services, not all data is equal. So we are able to drive efficiencies on what to track, what not to track based on historical perspective. We have that full fidelity data and visibility. So we're able to guide our customers on, for this particular application, hey, these are the areas where you'll need potentially real-time metrics, for example. Or, hey, maybe this particular application for this particular API, maybe you just need to take a look at it once a month. It's not on the critical path for that particular application. So we're able to advise our customers on what aspects of that application you need to monitor more frequently versus what are the applications and metrics and logs and trace files that probably you don't need it on a real-time basis. So those are some of the efficiencies that we're advising our customers. And it's fascinating to learn as well on how data, while it resolves problem, it also gives you insights on the applications themselves and where we can drive some efficiencies and effectiveness and reduce costs.
So it sounds like there's a component of machine learning within this tool itself, such that it is always improving and tailoring itself to your actual situation.
Absolutely.
You set and forget.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is our AI ops approach that we have for our applications. Absolutely.
And Mala, in the 30 seconds or so we have left, what should people do first to move into the era of observability?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, I mean, we have a large community of Splunk customers that are very active on various forums. You can learn from the experts from our customers. They can help answer some basic questions on how do you set up troubleshooting best practices, to how do you align KPIs to business outcomes of your critical business applications. So I would say engage with our large Splunk community out there.
All right, some great observations on observability. Mala Palutla is the Global Vice President for Observability at Splunk. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the time.
I'm Tom Temin, and you're listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Splunk.